Waiting for the screen. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on 7 strategies to prime your audience. And you see down the left-hand side the popcorn picture. So I want you to think of the anticipation of going to your favorite movie. Maybe it's one of the Star Wars episodes. Maybe it's Jason Bourne, the 4th of the Bourne Identity series, that one that you're ready to go into. You've had the discussions with your friends, you've seen the trailers, the popcorn is smelling beautifully, you're walking into the movie theaters and the anticipation is high and you're excited to be going to watch that movie. As presenters, as trainers, as speakers, we have an opportunity to prime our audience just to help them get the best out of the workshop. And that's really good for 2 reasons. First of all, it's enhancing the experience for your participants, for your audience. It's helping them learn, it's helping them remember information, it's helping them feel really comfortable and relaxed. The second thing is that it makes you look good. It makes you look professional as a presenter, as a trainer, as a workshop deliverer. So that's 2 reasons to really think about before your presentation. A lot of people focus on the content, their delivery, their PowerPoint slides, but there's all this stuff you can do to help people prepare. So I want to give you 7 strategies. There are obviously more, but 7 strategies to help you prime your audience for your next gig, for your next workshop. Bit of housekeeping, few new names on the webinar. So if you haven't done a webinar with me before, please ask questions as we go. You've got the Q&A dialogue box, type in at any time, make comments. Don't wait for me to ask a question. Please take notes, participate, think. And the thinking part is the application to your mind. And the way to do that is reflect on a previous workshop, seminar you've attended or you've conducted. What could have you done differently from what I'm going to teach you that you think would have just primed your audience a little bit better or would have made it for you as an audience member a little bit more professional? And the flip side is, if you've got a workshop coming up or a seminar you're planning for, what can you incorporate to make that presentation really memorable and a positive experience for your audience? So that's how to participate. Ask questions, think about it, apply it to your own situation. If I just talk for 30 minutes and you walk away and say that was nice and you don't take anything away, then I've kind of missed the mark. I want you to do something as a result of today's webinar. Let's get started. First thing is a simple handshake. I arrive at my venue early all the time. It's important. I need to set up. I need to become familiar with the venue. I go all around Australia training, so often I walk onto a stage, a platform, a training room that I've never been before, so I'm there early. And I like to greet people as they arrive, and it's a simple handshake to say hello and to let them know who I am and find out who they are. Now, it's not just a handshake. It's a mirror and match handshake. Mirror and match the handshake that's extended to you. So please don't crush someone's hand. Please don't give them the wet fish handshake. And there's that TV video of Mark Latham coming out of a radio interview before the election. This is 8-10 years ago. And Johnny Howard about to go in and have his turn, and Mark Latham crushing John Howard's hand and shaking it and pumping it up and down like it's a piston. And you can almost see the grimace on John Howard. It's a mirror and match. It's a connection. The thing that does for me is that you are no longer a stranger. We're not best friends yet, but that handshake breaks down some barriers. It's a connection, and the spoken word enables me to introduce myself, and I just feel a little bit more comfortable that I'm speaking to people that I've taken the time to meet and greet. And of course, there's always someone who arrives first, or the first 2 people to arrive, so you've got a few minutes to take that little discussion a bit further. So how was your journey here? Tell me a little bit about your background if you haven't done that beforehand. What are you hoping to get from me today? So all of that's part of the rapport and the connecting that you can do with those, the first 1 or 2 people that arrive early. Then when everyone starts arriving, all you can do is the handshake and sort of greet people. Zig Ziglar was a marketing and public speaking guru in the United States. He died about 2 years ago, so I never got to see Zig Ziglar live. I've watched some of his training videos, his YouTubes, and I've spoken to people who've been to Zig Ziglar's seminars. So he's one of the top presenters and trainers around marketing, customer experience. He made it a point to shake everybody's hand before they entered the auditorium, up to 1,000 people. He would arrive early. He would have his ushers, his team starting to bring people through 10 to 15 minutes early, and he would shake the hands. He would stand there at the door. No, you couldn't get past him anywhere else. There was only one door. Good morning. Zig's my name. Zig Ziglar. Pleased to meet you. 1,000 people. So don't dismiss the simple thing of a handshake. And you can be culturally prepared and culturally aware. I always start by saying, hello, my name's Peter. I'm really pleased to meet you. And sometimes it's not appropriate to shake the hand, and sometimes you wait, and if they extend their hand, then you can take their hand and mirror, reflect, and shake it. If they don't extend their hand because it's not culturally appropriate, then you just continue the greeting and you just have that nice resting neutral position, body language, and have the conversation accordingly. Handshake. Send some pre-workshop instructions. Nothing worse than running a little bit late trying to find parking or the train station. Send out a request for catering. Are there any allergies or dietary requirements? Yesterday, I ran a workshop in Perth on overcome your fear of public speaking, and one of my participants had gluten intolerance. I'd found out before, and I'd pre-arranged with the cafe that was providing morning and afternoon tea, and they had this really nice gluten-free chocolate brownie. It was so nice that we all had some of it. And there was also some muffins which were not gluten-free. I sent out an email and I asked people to dress in layers. Perth gets quite hot and it can be 40 degrees and the air conditioning is going flat tack, and it can still be hot. It can still be hot, or the air conditioning can be so cold. Optimum temperature for a training room is apparently 22 degrees. Many people find 22 degrees cold. So it's a summer's 40-degree day in Perth. You're wearing your summer outfit, you go to a training room and you freeze. So that pre-warning, that workshop housekeeping that I send out in advance, dress in layers, and people just put on their coat that they brought along. Even though it's a summer's day, they just pull out that extra layer that's tucked up in their backpack or their bag, and they're able to put that on. I do theatre style when I present, so I don't have a table and chair. So I tell people to take notes, and it's really good if you can bring along a flip chart or a hard-backed notepad on which to lean. Because if you just got soft paper, you will be wishing that you had a table to lean on. And because I do theatre style and I do presentation, I want people to be able to stand up and not be behind tables, so that I strip the room down. So this is about helping people out. Part of my parking, and I also send train instructions, tram, when I'm working in Melbourne, tram numbers that will take you to Brunswick Street in Fitzroy. The Metropole is where I have a little training room that I use. Google Maps. What can you do? I haven't got here. What's something that I haven't put here? What could we add as part of a pre-workshop instructions just to help people prepare for their workshop? What are some ideas you can think of that we could send out? We could send out an agenda. What time's morning tea, what time's lunch, and in case people have to schedule business meetings. I had someone the other week who had to have a phone call with a specialist, and she wanted to know, because the specialist is very busy, just needed a referral and wanted to know when to ring up. And I said, well, lunch is between 12:15 and 1, and that suited the specialist. Building directions. So even if you've got a Google map and you go to Edith Cowan University at Joondalup, you've still got a maze to negotiate depending on which room, which campus, which building you will be training in. So thank you for that. Thanks, Karen. So send out some pre-workshop instructions. Someone said to me, as soon as I got your instructions, Peter, I knew this workshop was going to be professional. I don't normally get that level of detail. Sometimes it works, sometimes people dismiss it, throw it in the bin, and then you get the phone call at about 10 to, hey, I'm lost. Where's this training room? Did you bring your Google map? No, didn't. But that's fine. That's up to them. But at least I've tried to provide some support. All right. Do a pre-workshop exercise. Get the people to do something in advance to get ready for the workshop. And this could be some reading. Maybe there's a case study for them to review. Maybe there's a pre-workshop survey you need to do. I often send out just a Word document and I ask them, tell me a little bit about your fear of public speaking and your speaking journey. If you could learn a second question, if you could learn 2 or 3 things from me that'll help you on your journey, what would that be? How to control nerves, what do I do if my mind goes blank? How can I present without notes? Yep, and I can weave all that into my content. Third question might be, if I'm doing a corporate one, what would a successful outcome look like for you as an organization? What would your staff be doing that illustrated that this workshop was really good, really successful? You know, the number of complaints from customers would be down, more people would be volunteering to lead meetings. What is the performance indicator that you as an organization would want? And if I know that beforehand, then I can structure my content to make sure you get the right learning outcome. That's preparing your audience. When you come to my workshops, I hope this doesn't scare anyone away. It could be that you have to do some public speaking. And I might ask you to bring along something you're passionate about, or how do you make a difference to your clients? And just jot down 2 or 3 points, and then we can develop that into a speech during the day. If I don't prepare people, some people come along and say, I've got nothing, I've got no passions, I've got no hobbies, there's nothing that I'm interested about, I've got nothing to talk about. So that's just another way of preparing your audience. Do some pre-workshop exercises, some homework, some case studies to read. Set up the room the right way. So you don't have a popcorn machine, but there's lots of things you can do. And I've mentioned the room temperature, and part of the room temperature is around optimal learning, about 22 degrees, which is cold for some people. The lighting, and sometimes you can't control the lighting, but yesterday I had 3 switches and I had to dim one light, the front light, all day, but there was enough light coming through the window in the back and the other 2 lights that were shining so that my PowerPoint slide would work. When I did videos, I had to dim 2 lights. So the resolution of the video was not good enough to be able to use the level of light that I use for my normal PowerPoint presentation. When people say, I need to dim the lights, can anyone see where the dimmer is or the light switches are? Can someone get housekeeping for me? I can't. That looks unprofessional. You need to know all of that beforehand. Sometimes you can't control the lighting, but you know where there's a dark spot. If you stand in the dark spot, you disappear, and there's the bright spot. By knowing that beforehand, especially in the bigger conference venues, where should I stand and where should I not stand? That's setting up the room right. That's your preparation. Have some mints, have some water. What kind of water? It can be any water. It can just be chilled tap water. I have had feedback once from a particular person who was allergic to fluoride and chloride, and my feedback was that I should have provided fluoride, chloride-free water. I brought 1.5 litres of mineral water, fluoride and chloride free, and I carried that around in my backpack for the next 12 months, and I've never needed it since. Sometimes when you get feedback, and this is not the purpose of this particular webinar, sometimes when you get feedback, you know, it's people saying what they want. You don't have to take all that feedback on board, but sometimes feedback's really valuable. Are you going to put flowers? My wife is running a Pilbara Women in Leadership workshop in March, and I know they ran this same 2-day masterclass last year, and they had flowers and everything matching. That really set the room up beautifully. I wasn't allowed in because I'm a mere male. The general ambience, sugar treats. So I like to have mints, and I use Minties or just some of those sort of hot mints all day. But sugar treats after lunch, when you have that afternoon hypoglycemic episode and your cortisol goes down after lunch, you know, the little chocolate bars, the Mars bars, that people can help themselves to. Not all day because the sugar will then put them to sleep during the day, but at the right time. What do you do to set up the room right? What are some other things that I haven't mentioned that we can do when we think about the room? I'll get you to type in your comments around room setup. Yep, microphone's really important. What sort of microphone are you going to have? If you're like me and you don't stand behind a lectern, I need a roving microphone. Now, I don't like handheld microphones because, I don't know how to use handheld microphones all that well. I love not these ones, but the Madonna microphones with the mouthpiece, or the lapel microphone that sits. Then you can walk around and you can speak and people can hear you. Know what the audio visual requirements are and make sure it's what you need before you go in the room. I find the session after lunch very arduous. Other than sugar, I find that doing an activity rather than just listening keeps me awake and engaged. So what is your energizer that you do after lunch, or any time your peripheral vision picks up that the energy in the room has just dropped? How do you get people on the feet and re-energize them? Do you get people to change seats? Do you do a little exercise where people rub their hands and they clap in unison? What's your thing to re-energize? Put leaflets on the chairs, and I do that with information pertaining to the workshop, but I also do a little bit of marketing, and I drop some flyers for future workshops for people to take away and share amongst their colleagues. The chair positioning, nothing worse than being stuck right behind a person's head. So herringbone, offset. One set of chairs there and the other set is offset. It's called herringbone, so it's staggering your chairs. Great point. Discussion jokes. What's your joke, your appropriate joke? Make sure it's tested. What you think funny may not be funny. And if you're not humorous like me, you really have to be careful when you use humor. All of these things are the popcorn for your audience as they go into the movie theater. Thank you for all those comments. So the next tip, do a pre-workshop webinar. This webinar could be getting you ready to overcome my fear of public speaking workshop. What we're going to cover, how to prepare, some quick tips about relaxation and deep breathing should you get really stressed in the workshop. And if I can give you those skills now, before you walk on the platform at my Overcome Your Fear of Public Speaking workshop, then I've kind of helped you out. Deal with the elephants in the room beforehand. So you're coming to my wife Violet's Difficult Conversations workshop, and there's going to be some colleagues in the room, and you're worried about if you raise your difficult conversations that other staff members may take offence or hold that against you. So in this pre-workshop webinar, the rules are quite simple. I want you to bring along an issue, a difficult conversation that doesn't relate to work. It's a little bit more generic. Your sporting club, your Lions club, your Rotary club, something at home, your family, that you feel comfortable sharing. And the policy is, or rather the principle is, that the skills I'm going to teach you today, you'll be able to apply to the workplace. So I'm going to make it that you don't have to worry about. So it's about setting the scene, painting the picture, what's going to happen in advance. It's almost like a trailer that we watch on TV. Wow, I need to go and see that movie. And it allows you to allay some fears and do some prep work. And there's some really good webinar software out there. I use GoToWebinar, which is quite expensive, but it's core to my business. And you can use Zoom and some other webinar apps that are really quite cheap and just enables. And you can even do Skype if you've got a small group. I think you can do up to about 10 people on a group Skype session for free. Another thing that I sometimes do, number 6, send a video or a TED talk. This can be a YouTube video of myself with some tips. If I'm going to do a presentation on a one-day workshop on the art and science of nonverbal communication, excuse me, I've got a little video on some of the things of what not to do. Some of you may have seen this video. I think I put it on Facebook. It's about eliminating the bounce from your gestures. And our Prime Minister seems to think that each time you talk, you need to bounce your hand up and down. Don't do that, please. The bounce is in fact visual noise, and those of you who are visual learners are hoping that I'll please keep my hands still. Not the purpose of this webinar, but you do the frozen gesture. You make a gesture, you freeze it, and then you melt it back towards your resting position. So if I teach people to do that, when they come along to my nonverbal communication, as I talk about the enrichment of their gestures, using the platform, their eye contact, their voice, all of those nonverbals, straight away they're going to be less likely to do the bounce because they've learnt about that beforehand. Amy Cuddy does a great TED talk about power posing. You know, this is the Wonder Woman pose. If you're a little bit nervous about my workshop, watch the TED talk by Amy Cuddy. Goes for about 20 minutes. Do that before you come along, and in theory your testosterone, your confidence level should be higher, in theory. Send a video along. You can even create a video specially for your workshop. You don't want to do a webinar, a live webinar, do what I'm doing, record it and upload it to YouTube, then that becomes your video. Make the place safe. Especially if you're talking about something a little bit difficult, a little bit sensitive, especially if you're going in-house. So some of the stuff, the conflict resolution that you're talking about may involve conflict with some of the people in the room. Really important that people feel safe when they go into workshops or training situations. If they don't feel safe and they hold back, then their learning outcome won't be the same. You've also got your introverts and your extroverts, and the extroverts talk to think, talk to be heard. The introverts remain silent to think, remain silent to kind of be heard. So you've got to allow that you'll have introverts and extroverts. We've all heard what is said in the room stays in the room. Now I know there's social workers and some situations, family violence and child abuse, where what is said in the room may by law have to be shared. but that's a different situation. Generally, let people share and feel that it'll be maintained in terms of private and confidential. Get that agreement. Participation is voluntary. So you're coming to my public speaking workshop, Overcome Your Fear of Public Speaking. You've probably gathered you're going to stand up and speak in front of 10 people, 15 people. Some people are already feeling the butterflies in their stomach. I'm going to let you know that participation is voluntary. I want you to watch, learn, hang back a little bit, see what other people who are also afraid of public speaking, see how they go, see what they do. When you're ready, I'll invite you to take the platform. If you're not ready at all, then that's fine. They're my 7 steps. There are other strategies. The handshake. This is the meet and greet up front. Make it a warm experience. Give them some pre-workshop instructions. Dress in layers. Bring your nuts, your energy bars, and exercise. Do reading. Think about what you're going to speak about. Set up the room right, the mints, the water. Do a pre-workshop webinar. Share a video, TED Talk. Make the place safe as you can. Anything I've missed? Anything you're going to do that you haven't already shared to make your next presentation, your next facilitation, to set the scene for your audience so they walk in and think, wow, this person really has taken the time and the effort to prepare for this workshop. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, John. The stories you tell, the stories you share, the anecdotes to prepare, that you prepare to illustrate your points need to match the audience. So I work with the disability sector quite a lot. I work with the health sector quite a lot. BHP, Rio Tinto and Chevron, that's the health and safety type sector. So telling a disability story to mining, oil and gas doesn't always work. So I've got different stories to illustrate the points I'm trying to make for different audiences, and that's about preparation. So who's going to be in the room, what stories, and someone said humour, so what humour am I going to use for this group? Just be aware of that. And that's about knowing your audience. The question is, what are you going to do? How are you going to prime your audience for your next presentation? Don't say, well, that's nice. Yep, I can put some mints or chocolates. I'm going to now weave into some humour and do nothing about it. Don't have a list. I call it, don't have a list that gathers dust in your top drawer. Do something different. And if you try something different and it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Do something different the next time. Thanks for your comments. I'm going to end it there. I'm going to stop the recording. We've gone